Brothers and sisters, just a reflection for the great mystery of the Epiphany. Some of you will be celebrating it today. I know in Ireland you will celebrate it on the 6th of January. So just for us to open up our minds and hearts today, this amazing mystery, this amazing event in Jesus's life. That, these wise men, these magi, that came from the East. In other words, they came from outside of the tradition of Israel. They came from the outside of that revelation given to this chosen people for centuries. It's a great mystery of how God started to summon all nations, pagan nations, towards Christ. And so these magi, they are guided by this star that appears in the heavens. So there's something cosmic. Even the universe is proclaiming the truth of Christ, that the universe itself is being used by the Creator to call people towards Christ. And you could say on the natural level, the way that the Lord created the universe is already a way in which that it's supposed to be a guide towards God, a guide towards acclaiming God as real and that there is a creator there. In this mystery of the Epiphany, we see the manifestation of God's divinity in Christ being recognized by people outside the Jewish tradition. So these magi, so they represent all nations of the earth that are called to make a journey towards Christ. And so this is why the imperative, the command of Christ to go out and baptize all nations. It is in one sense a risky thing to not know Christ and not to receive the power and effects of this sacrament in our life. In one of the documents of Vatican II, it speaks about salvation, that there is no salvation outside of Christ and the church. That teaching of Vatican II didn't change because we cannot change it. It's the revelation of Jesus himself. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come to the Father unless through me. How do we understand, therefore, the relationship to other people, to Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, or to people who do not follow Christ? And we believe as Catholics, as Christians, that the gospel is the full revelation of the face of God, or the inner heart of God, and about the way of truth. We believe that other faiths are, so you could say, preparations for the gospel, and therefore that if people want to discover the fullness of who God is, then we believe that comes to us through the life of Christ. If God has one face, that God was going to express himself in history definitively as who he is, because God is unchanging truth in eternity, then it would happen once. And he chose Bethlehem, he chose Mary, he chose this place, he chose this people to prepare this path by which he would, grace us with his full presence and the fullness of his truth that he wants to communicate to us. And so the Magi, to me, and the church fathers see this, recognize this journey of faith of the nations of the world to Christ, to discover Christ. And when they come, who do they discover Christ with? Our Lady, Saint Joseph, and also the shepherds, symbolize also this whole great theme of shepherds in the history of Israel, that God ultimately is the shepherd. So the shepherds too come and they meet their shepherd, the Christ King. So, but these magi, they make this journey of faith. And, so come back to what Vatican II said. Vatican II said that yes, Muslims and Hindus and other peoples of faith can be saved. At death, they will be saved through Christ if they followed their conscience and followed faithfully and did not know Christ and did not reject him and truly just did as best as they could in their life. That if they were to know about Christ, they would have had a desire for baptism. They would have had a desire to be with Christ. So in that sense, they have this experience of being baptized by Christ at death if they are just, in their traditions. And so, but Vatican II says that but we still want to evangelize by spreading the faith, because we want people to not live in any fantasy, but to come to the fullness of truth, to come to the fullness of reality, to come fullness of what life is truly about, which is about Christ, is about union with God in the eternal city, and about, obviously, about the great mystery of the Mass, that Christ has left us in the meantime as a means to reach heaven, to survive death, to make that leap, that quantum leap into God, in the fullness of God. And so Vatican II says that it is more difficult for people outside of the church to be saved, because they don't have the full means of grace readily available. However, those who have the fullness of Christ, as the Lord said, much has been given, much is expected. So when the Magi came to meet Christ, they came, but they left with a greater obligation of bringing Christ to the world.